This is the Tamron 17-50 f4, and today we've got your full in-depth review of this guy. What is it, guys? This is an ultra-wide to standard zoom, very cool focal length for Sony full-frame cameras, but also may be available for other mounts as well, including Nikon Z mount, which a lot of Tamron lenses are now coming to, which is really exciting. So a great do-it-all lens, guys. Here's some specs to get you going on it. And if you haven't seen one of my videos and you end up liking it, if it does help you out, consider hitting that like and subscribe button. So yeah, let's talk about this thing, who it's for, what it's capable of. This is a fast, constant f4 aperture, not quite your f2.8, but as you'll see, in some cases that might not be a big deal for you, and definitely the price is right at only $699 US. I think this thing has a lot packed in here. Let's check out some photo examples of my time with this thing so far. I've had it for maybe about a month and been loving it. It's a great all-around shooter, and as you can see here, it's gonna be great for landscape, great for architecture, but also for getting in, shooting the details and portraits when you're in a pinch. The constant f4, of course, isn't gonna be, renowned for its portrait photography. You're gonna want something a little bit faster generally, but yeah, don't rule this thing out. It's capable of a lot, and it's a great general purpose lens. So I was lucky enough to take this thing up into the hills, get some astro shots, get some changing of the season kind of colors, and of course just some general family fun stuff as well. So let me know what you think about the photo examples down in the comments. Next, let's talk about the build of this lens. Now, in typical Tamron fashion, it has a decent build. This one doesn't have a ton of bells and whistles. In fact, it's only got one customizable manual focus hold button. No other buttons. There's switches. We do have that USB port that we're becoming a lot more familiar with these days, which does allow us to customize how this button is controlled. So if you want to have a automatic manual focus switch or an A to B point of focus, things like that, you can kind of customize that through the app or plug it into your computer as well. So in terms, again, of the build, it's a great size and a great weight for such a versatile focal length, I think. On the top up here, we've got a rather small and quite stiff focus ring. And at the back here is our zoom ring. And this thing does have a pretty cool feature being internally zooming here. However, the front element does move as you zoom the lens. So something to consider. I think it's better having that than the whole barrel extending out, I think, for weather sealing. But this lens and any other Tamron lens that I've owned recently has not had any issues when it comes to weather sealing, so I am confident in that. It's got the consistent 67mm filter threads with their patented coatings to help with ghosting and flare, of course. And on the back, a nice confident metal mount with a rubber gasket for weather sealing confidence. In addition to, all the stuff that they've got in between the seals and all that jazz. So yeah, your typical Tamron build that we're used to, and I have absolutely no complaints. It would have been nice to see a little maybe automatic manual focus hold button or maybe another button so we could have some variety. But I understand, again, at the price point, you got to make sacrifices. And for what this thing is, I think build and features, well, for me, it gets a solid 4 stars. All right, let's jump into performance here, and let's start with one of the most important aspects, the autofocus. Now, I'm happy to say that yes, it does utilize their newer VXD focusing motors, and the autofocus doesn't miss a beat. This thing's gonna show up for you, whether you're in low light or regular light or any light you throw at it. This thing's gonna perform well, just like the average Tamron lens these days. I really don't have many complaints in terms of autofocus, as you can see here. When it comes to the manual focus experience here, it is quite stiff, this ring here, but it does feel quite accurate and pretty intuitive. You can change, of course, the operation from a linear or non-linear operation when you want to customize that thing as well. And in terms of focus breathing, it's actually quite well controlled. No deal breakers there, and this is also going to make for a great video lens as well as a still photography lens. So if you are thinking about throwing this thing on a gimbal, just know that it's lightweight, it balances well, it doesn't extend as you zoom. It's hitting a lot of the boxes, but just keep in mind it is an f4, and again, not a fast f2.8. Here's a few more shots showcasing the versatility of this lens, and there are a few things that I wanted to touch on, one being the incredible minimum focus distance. On the wide side of things, you can get as close as 7.5 inches to your subject, 11.8 on the telephoto side of things. So that's really cool. That up close and personal features on a lot of the newer lenses is just great. Getting nearly macro-like capabilities. And if you're wondering about magnification ratios, and that's going to equal 1 to 4.6 on the wide side and 1 to 3.8 on the telephoto side of things. So not quite macro, of course, but nonetheless, it's really nice to get close when you need to.
Next, with 9 aperture blades, the bokeh of this lens is actually quite nice. After all, it is an f4, so don't expect any mind-blowing results like a fast f1.8 or something, but as you can see here, well, I'll let you be the judge. It's worth noting that in my experience, it does handle flare quite well, and as you can see here, if you stop down, you can get some pretty nice looking sun stars.
Next, for you pixel peepers, we'll dive in and have a look at the sharpness and optics. If that's not a concern to you, just skip ahead.
And here's a quick look at the sharpness and optics here. This is wide open at f4 at 17 millimeters. As you can see, it does struggle a little bit with some distortion and vignetting wide open. The center of the image, as expected, is nice and sharp. Absolutely nothing to complain about there. But as we get into the corners, the very corners here, it does start to degrade a little bit. So softness in the corners to note here at f4. Stopping down to f5.6, we can see it still persists a little bit better, but just nothing perfect. And it's not till about f8 that we get a nice image here, but it's still absolutely not perfect in the corners by any means. Stopping down further to f11, looking pretty good now, and down to f16. And then we can go down all the way down to our minimum aperture of f22 here. So as you'd expect, a little bit of degradation at that point, but no deal breakers. So overall at 17 millimeters, besides the corner softness wide open down to about f8, well, it's a pretty decent performance. And here at 50 millimeters, we can see the distortion and vignetting a bit better controlled now. The center of the image is nice and sharp, and down into the corners are actually a better performer here at f4. It's not perfect, but it's pretty good, I'll say. Now stopping down to f5.6, we can see a bit of an improvement, a little bit of chromatic aberration, but nothing too crazy. Stopping down to f8, corners looking pretty darn good now. And again, down to f11 to show you the difference, looking fantastic. And down to f16. And from there on, we can still once again stop down to f22, which is our minimum aperture, to see a little bit of that degradation come back. But overall, pretty good at 50 millimeters if you ask me.
So overall for performance, I think this thing is a great performing lens considering its wide and versatile focal range. And again, at the price, I don't think we can complain much. For $699, again, I think this thing is a great value. And for performance as a whole, I give this thing a solid 4 stars. So there you have it, guys. There's my thoughts on the awesome new Tamron 17-50 f4. This is going to be a fantastic kit lens, or if you don't have a ton of budget or want to carry a bunch of lenses around, this is a great one-and-done lens for your full-frame camera, and I think it's going to serve you well. Well, guys, if you want to pick this thing up, I will drop affiliate links down below. Thanks so much for watching the video, and if you have any questions or comments, make sure you drop them down in the comments. Like always, make mistakes, be yourself, and get out there and take some more pictures. See you next time.